Hello, and welcome to another edition of Dank Times, Danker Thoughts, with me, Angelo, episode 126. Yikes. I view the episode count on this podcast the same way I view my age. Constantly surprised at how long this podcast is going, constantly surprised how actually old I am. I still feel like I'm in my 20s. In fact, if a stranger walked up to me and said, "Hey, how old are you?" my knee-jerk reaction would be like 24, 25, or 26. And then I have to pause and say, "Oh, I am sorry. The last 10 years have been in a black hole fog. I'm actually 36." And then I would start crying and get into the fetal position in the middle of the street. But anyway, hope everyone's doing cool. Hope everyone's vibing and, just kind of doing your own thing. Not much has been going on with me personally since we last spoke. Work has still been picking up like crazy. I have not gone out on any dates recently. I have not bumped uglies in the last couple weeks. But time is still flying by. I've discovered a niche channel on the Paramount app. Or is it the Peacock? I think it's Peacock. Fuck you, Paramount. You got nothing. The Peacock app, I discovered, has a channel dedicated to WWF. Now, for those of you that did not have a childhood in the 90s, that is the World Wrestling Federation. And I was basically raised by pro wrestling from the late 80s up really until the mid to late 90s. Up until high school, I would say. Once I got into high school in the year 2000, I was kind of done with pro wrestling. But during the 90s, oh my God, I watched every episode of Raw, SmackDown. I watched Monday Night Nitro, which is WCW, the main competition for WWF. Now they're all one company, WWE. But back in the day, you would have the TV wars, especially on Mondays and Thursdays, because you would have both WWF and WCW releasing content on the same day during the same time frame. And they were picking on each other. They would inspire one another. Wrestlers would get fired from one league and go into the other. And it was a great time to be alive. Great time. And it's quite it's quite interesting now that I've found that channel on the Peacock app. And I've gotten so incredibly high these last few nights and just watched probably 4 to 5 hours of old wrestling matches. And it's it's so fun. It's a nostalgia hit, baby. That's what I love. And it's amazing to me that I did not watch all those years of pro wrestling and did not come out a homosexual, because that has got to be some of the gayest shit I have ever seen. I was watching one match in particular. It was the Shawn Michaels versus Razor Ramon ladder match for the Intercontinental belt and another belt. Was it the European Champion belt? I don't know. There was two belts hanging 10 feet up, and it was a ladder match. I feel like I should not have to explain what a ladder match is or was. But anyway, I couldn't help but notice while I was watching this match that these are both just incredibly looking like they were chiseled out of stone men. And they're all greased up. And they all look so fucking sexy. And their little tights are so tight around their junk. And their ass is just perfect. And I'm thinking, this is the gayest shit ever. These guys are basically naked. And they're on top of one each other. They're slapping, hugging, slamming each other down. Shawn Michaels gets pantsed almost every match. You see his bare ass, which he has a nice ass. And I'm just thinking, how many young boys grew up watching wrestling and found themselves attracted to a Shawn Michaels or a Razor Ramon or a Diesel or a Hunter Hearst Helmsley? I could keep going down the list of hot, sexy men from wrestling. And they realize, oh, maybe I'm gay. I can't talk about it because it's the 90s, but when you're watching Macho Man Randy Savage fighting the Ultimate Warrior and Miss Elizabeth is on the corner, some poor boys will watch Miss Elizabeth and say, you know what, she's fine, but Macho Man and Ultimate Warrior, God, I'd like to have them body slam me. Or at least a good old suplex. And yeah, it's just odd to me that I came out so anti liking men that way. You know what I'm saying? Because I watched a lot of that shit growing up, and my favorite movies were like the Gladiator and the Braveheart movies, wherein again you have basically naked men fighting one another with like swords and weapons and shit, and they're all sweaty and sexy and hot, and I'm just getting all amped up like yeah. And my father used to make fun of me when I was a kid, basically make fun that I was gay because I loved watching half naked men fight one another. And I would just get so embarrassed or so mad, or I would start second guessing myself. Should I be enjoying this? Now that I'm older, I can just say, well, he was just a bad father. At least in that department. But yeah, watching this wrestling is WWF wrestling has got to be one of the gayest shit you'll ever watch. But you know what, people? I'm enjoying it. I am loving it, in fact. I'm hoping that I don't devote most of my free time to getting high and watching these old matches. I got to work out a routine or a schedule. Maybe I watch new content, and then when I'm in bed, I can maybe knock out an hour or so. Like right now, I'm watching a steel cage match between The Undertaker and Shawn Michaels, and it is so fucking exhilarating. I spent a couple hours watching the evolution of Stone Cold Steve Austin because he was my jam when I was in middle school. You see, because everyone that watched pro wrestling, you either, well, at least the kids around me, we either loved the heel or we loved the hero. Now, for me, I was always skeptical of the number one most popular guy. So, growing up in the early 90s, this is not a surprise to any red blooded American, but the most popular pro wrestler of the late 80s, early 90s was obviously the man in red and yellow, Hulk Hogan. You know what I'm talking about, brother? And he was never my favorite wrestler. I didn't dislike Hulk Hogan, but he was everybody's favorite. So I chose to like, the second tier wrestlers. I loved me some Ultimate Warrior. I loved me some Bret Hart. Those are probably my two favorite wrestlers. And in WCW, I really liked Sting. And now that I'm realizing that I liked the wrestlers that had a lot of face paint, which is the Ultimate Warrior and Sting. But Bret Hart, there's just something about Bret Hart. I don't know, but I know a lot of young boys really liked Bret Hart, whereas some of the fathers or the older siblings were more fans of the Hulk Hogan's, the Macho Man Randy Savage, the Jake the Snake, the Roddy Piper, King Kong Bundy, things like that. Whereas the young kids, they liked the Harts, they liked, oh, what's his name? Sid Vicious. Oh, God, I'm drawing a blank. Razor Ramon and Diesel. Of course, Shawn Michaels became my giant favorite. Well, maybe. I always liked Bret Hart. Bret Hart was always my number one. But then it was Shawn Michaels. And then as I got a little older, Stone Cold Steve Austin, of course, Goldberg and WCW. And, of course, when WCW, at a last-ditch effort to save their tanking ratings, they started the NWO team, which had a rejuvenated Hulk Hogan, matching with Diesel and Razor Ramon, now using their real names, Kevin Nash and, what's Razor Ramon's real name? It doesn't matter. And then WWF said, oh yeah, you have some attitude, we have some attitude. And they started the Generation X with Shawn Michaels, Triple H, Chyna, Triple X, formerly 1-2-3 Kid, and the rest is history. But when I was in middle school, that was like my second age of wrestling. When I was younger, I'm talking late 80s up until 93, I would say was a good cutoff point. 93, maybe 94. That was to me the golden age of wrestling. But then you saw a lot of those wrestlers basically retire to not headlining. They were either backup wrestlers, they were announcers, or they would go to WCW and have a second life, like Lex Luger and I mentioned earlier Macho Man and Hulk Hogan. Although Hulk Hogan never really stopped. Ric Flair's another one. Ric Flair never stopped wrestling. I mean, he's done now, obviously, but I thought at a young age that he was 70 back then, and I realized, no, he just had white hair. But the Nature Boy Ric Flair, I mean, him and Hulk Hogan have got to be the only wrestlers that, yes, even though they're in their 70s, I think Hulk Hogan's in the 70s, they still look like they could go a couple rounds. Whereas you watch a lot of the other wrestlers, they can barely walk, barely move. Unfortunately, a lot of them have passed. One of my favorites, Ultimate Warrior. I really did a deep dive on him because he was my favorite when I was the young child first getting into wrestling. I used to dress up at home. I used to paint my face like him. I used to put the boots on. He had strings around his biceps that would hang down. I used to dress up like him, and I would just fight my stuffed animals on my bed. I would talk to myself. I would have wrestling on the TV. I mean, I was obsessed. And then when I was with my friends, we'd play fight. Of course, I'm surprised no one ever killed one another. I remember one time when I was at the daycare. Well, we were the older kids at daycare, but for the lack of a better word, I'll call this daycare. We were basically middle school kids. My friend at the time, Kyle, he's my age, but he had a younger brother, probably 3 years younger than us, named Travis. And we'd always make Travis, because he was the youngest, we'd make him be like the the sexy gal that would come out with us. As we would showboat, and he would be like our sidekick or the hot bitch on the sidelines, and he would get up mad and say, no, I want to fight. I like wrestlers too. And so I said, okay. And so I said, okay, well, I'm going to be the Undertaker, and you're going to be someone else. I forget who he was. And I picked him up, and I was going to tombstone him. That was the Undertaker's move. I didn't know then that, the tombstone, the victim's head never hit the mat. There was probably a good 3 to 4 inches space there, but the common man didn't see that. Me, being, probably 10 or 11 years old, didn't know that. So I picked Travis up, flipped him upside down so that his face was in my groin, and I dropped him, and that motherfucker's head hit the beauty bark hard, and he started crying. I freaked out because I realized what I did, and again, he's fine, but I just could not believe that me and my dorky ass friends, we never killed one another. No one ever got injured. I mean, I remember Kyle and I and some other friends, we would go into his dog's kennel. Now, he had I want to say it was a golden retriever mix. I don't know. But the dog was wild, and it wasn't allowed in the house at night. So the dog would be kenneled outside in the evening. But it was a giant kennel because the dog could jump. And I want to say, again, I must have been 10 or 11, but to me, the kennel was the same size as a Hell in the Cell match, a steel cage match, which is, I think, 20 feet as the pro wrestling's cage match. I don't know. So to me, my little kid brain, this dog kennel was exactly the same as a cage match. And so Kyle and I used to throw each other against the gate and rub each other's faces on it. And again, no one ever got a bloody nose, maybe a bloody lip every now and then. And we never were trying to hurt one another, but god damn it, was it fun. I used to collect the cards. I used to buy the pogs. I bought everything. I mean, you name it. The t-shirts, the action figures, temporary tattoos. God damn it, those were the days. I even got to see a few live events. I remember my sister took me to one of the Monday Night Raws that was filming in Seattle. And I think I was on TV because when I went to school the next day, my friends could have been, just fucking with me. They said they saw me and my sister on TV. I used to go to a lot of the untelevised events that were cheaper to go to, but of course they weren't televised. They were just for fans during the day, and then during the evening was when the big televised events were there. I saw a steel cage match between, I think it was Diesel and Bret Hart, and I made a giant Bret Hart sign, neon pink, and I put sunglasses on it. I used thick black Sharpies. I was obsessed with Bret Hart. I love Bret Hart. And he is such a fan favorite that he walked right up to me. I mean, he walked up to a lot of kids in the front row. Don't get me wrong. And I was up there screaming, Bret, Bret, Bret. He saw my sign. He actually took the sign, looked at me and smiled and handed it back to me and gave me a head nod like, that'll do, piggy. That'll do. Like that bitch didn't, babe. But I love that shit. It bonded me and my sister. It bonded me and my father. And it made me kind of be somewhat popular in school because my father had a illegal black box to get free pay-per-view. And almost every major WWF or WCW pay-per-view event, my father would host me, my sister, and a bunch of my friends. And he would barbecue, and we would just make a day of it. And it was such a blast, We'd bring our toys, and we'd be playing on the floor during the matches. I mean, to me, that's when America was great. But it was to me, a white kid in the suburbs, divorced parents, had a lot of questions in my life about spirituality. I was unhappy a lot of the time because my parents divorced, and I could tell my family was more poor than some of the other friends that I had. But when it came to wrestling, there was not a lot of difference. We all gelled together. We all coalesced into one nice, happy family unit. It was something that I could bond with kids my own age. And yeah, it was just a very positive, guiding North Star in my young life. Oh, shit. Who scored that touchdown? Sorry, as I record this, I'm also watching the Thursday night football matchup between the Browns and Steelers in Cleveland. I got a couple fantasy players going on here. By the way, side note to nostalgic pro wrestling. In the second week of the NFL, your boy here went 3-0 in fantasy football. That's right, I'm 6-0 for the year. Fantastic. So yeah, so I've been catching up and watching these old matches. I think I told you I'm currently watching an Undertaker series. And I don't know how much I want to go into it. I found that Peacock has every single Monday Night Raw episode. And I thought, do I want to watch 30-something years of pro wrestling? And I put on the first episode just to see what it was like. It's from 1991, Madison Square Garden. And I said to myself, you can't do this. This will be your life for the next few months. Come on, you can't. So what I'm doing is just watching the highlight videos, which are still 3 to 4 hours long because each video has at least 5 or 6 matches. I watched the best of WrestleMania from the 1990s. That was over 4 hours long. This Undertaker series I'm watching is about 4 hours. The Stone Cold Steve Austin one, I just dipped my toe in it, but I think that's over 4 hours long. I mean, it's just bringing back all these memories. And I talked to the old man today about it, and he said, well, I kind of outgrew it. And I said, well, so did I, obviously. I don't know what's been happening in the last 22 years of wrestling, but during the 90s, wasn't it something fun? Then he thought about it and said, yeah, that was a fun time. I really did enjoy hosting, and it was something you and I could watch together. And my sister has since passed. I've talked about it many times. That was something her and I would really bond over at a young age. So, yeah, you can look at it and say, well, Vince McMahon, who is the owner of the WWF, is basically a Donald Trump type cunt. He really is. He's one of the worst human beings on the planet. But god damn it, did he know how to put out a good product? Did he fuck over a lot of wrestlers? Oh yes. In fact, he fucked over more than he didn't. And I do feel bad for a lot of the wrestlers who just did not have the medical or the mental benefits like other companies would offer. So you would have a star in the making get injured and then become addicted to painkillers or addicted to alcohol, and they're out of the sport by late 20s, early 30s, and that's all they know. It's very sad. And of course, I read up on The Ultimate Warrior. I just wanted to know what his life was like, and Jesus Christ, was that guy a tragic, tragic history. Some of it his own making, but Vince McMahon fucked over him really bad. But then again, Vince McMahon fucked over Bret Hart, he fucked over Hulk Hogan, he fucked over Sting, he fucked over Goldberg, you name it. But yeah, I am slowly getting obsessed again with this nostalgic pro wrestling, which I don't know if it's a good or a bad thing. So far, so good. It hasn't stopped me from living my life. I haven't called out sick at work so I could just watch pro wrestling all day. But my God. And you pick up things that I never picked up when I was younger. When I was younger and I would watch a match, I was watching the match. And I could follow the storyline. There's always drama. It's a goddamn soap opera. But I was never really into the commentary. Now, as a mid-30s, it's close to being late 30s, but as a mid-30s man now, I am finding the commentary geniusly hilarious. Jerry Lawler is one of the funniest motherfuckers out there. I'm surprised he never did stand-up. So, if you were a 90s kid like me, growing up watching pro wrestling, and you get the Peacock channel or Peacock app, whatever it is, check it out. You'd be kind of surprised that some of the feelings that you get. I watched one of the greatest matches of all time, the first WrestleMania between Stone Cold Steve Austin and The Rock. And you think, I forgot The Rock was a phenom in the late 90s. I forgot how the feud between Stone Cold Steve Austin and Vince McMahon went above wrestling. I mean, it was on TV shows. It was on the news. Oh, man, I'm getting all worked up here just thinking about it. But with that, I think we can leave pro wrestling. It did me a great service growing up. It could have turned me gay, but it didn't, which is not a bad thing. I'm just saying it didn't. And so, yeah, I'm not going to talk about pro wrestling every single podcast going forward. I'm not going to be like, well, this week, here's what I watched. I'm not going to bore you with that. But I am thinking about, if I ever do want to get a pro wrestling tattoo, I'm thinking, well, for one's going to be Bret Hart, and one's going to be Stone Cold Steve Austin, and if I get a third, it'll be Shawn Michaels. But then I'm thinking, do I really want to get an Ultimate Warrior tattoo? Because that would be fucking money. But anyway, with that, I think we can dive into some news stories. The first story I'm going to read to you shows why the Democrats are their own worst enemy, and it's damn near impossible for them to agree on anything. And while their internal squabbling on the national stage just proves that sometimes when Republicans talk shit about the Democrats, how they can't see eye to eye, there's always internal fighting, blah, 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 all that bullshit is sometimes fairly accurate. Because one thing I do have to give the Republicans is that they keep their internal squabbles behind closed doors, whereas the Democrats do it right in the fucking open. But anyway, that's just one part of the story. The House passes 4 policing bills despite Democratic division. The House on Thursday moved 4 policing and public safety bills over the finish line after last-minute opposition from the Progressive Squad almost tanked the package, capping off months of negotiations between progressive and moderate Democrats. The votes, all of which were bipartisan, came after members of the Squad threatened to bring down a procedural vote to advance the legislation over concerns of lack of accountability measures in the legislation, as well as opposition to the fast-track process used to consider 2 of the 4 bills. Resistance from those progressives, Cori Bush from Montana, I think, is that Montana? Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez from New York, Rashida Tlaib from Michigan, and Jamal Bowman from New York, and Ayanna Pressley from Massachusetts, delayed the procedural votes and debated for roughly 3 hours. Okay, it's going to bother me. Is M.O. Missouri or Montana? What is M.O.? Missouri. Fuck. Somehow, some way, people, I have a college degree. If I can get one, any jabroni can get one. Key negotiators announced a deal on the 4 policing and public safety bills on Wednesday, setting a floor vote after House leadership twice punted on legislation earlier this year. Moderates, especially those running in tight races this upcoming November, had been pushing for a vote on public safety measures for months, hoping to tout their pro-police bona fides on the campaign trail as an antidote to Republicans attacking the Democrats with the defund the police nonsense. But progressives were hesitant to funnel more money to law enforcement without ensuring that safeguards were in place to protect against police abuse. And of course, I'm with the progressives on this. I only wish they would have had their squabbling behind closed doors and not out in the motherfucking open. After 11-hour negotiations that took place in the final days before the midterm elections, the 2 Democratic camps struck a deal on 4 separate measures. The bills now head to the Senate, though they are not high on the priority list. Even if they were brought up for consideration in the upper chamber, it is unlikely 10 Republicans would come on board to break a filibuster. So all of this hubbub may be for nothing. But at least the bills are important. At least they passed them. And here's what the bills are. The first bill, titled the Invest to Protect Act, and sponsored by Josh Gottheimer, a Democrat from New Jersey, passed 360 to 64. 9 Democrats broke at the party and voted against the bill. Gottheimer's legislation would allocate federal grants to small law enforcement agencies that encompass fewer than 125 officers. The bill initially pertained to departments with no more than 200 officers, but the number was brought down during final negotiations. Representative Stephen Horsford's bill, and he's from Nevada, titled the Break the Cycle of Violence Act, also cleared the chamber in a much closer 220 to 207 vote, with 1 Republican, Brian Fitzpatrick of Pennsylvania, siding with Democrats in supporting the measure. The Nevada Democrats' legislation hands out grants for coordinated community violence initiatives in areas that see a disproportionate amount of homicides and other forms of community violence. God, I used to be able to say words like disproportionate. The grants from the Department of Health and Human Services would be used to curb such behavior. The third bill, sponsored by Representative Katie Porter, one of my favorite politicians, God bless Katie Porter, titled the Mental Health Justice Act, would award funds to train and assign mental health professionals to respond to situations involving individuals with special behavioral needs rather than sending law enforcement personnel. Well, that makes sense. That way you don't have cops killing retards. The measure passed 223 to 206, with 3 Republicans joining, all voting Democrats and supporting the measure. And that one of the Republicans was our homegrown Jamie Herrera Butler from Washington. And the 4th measure, dubbed the Victim Act and crafted by Val Demings from Florida, instructs the Justice Department to create a grant program that would support technology being used to help local investigators solve cold cases, especially ones that pertain to gun violence. That bill passed 250 to 178, with 30 Republicans joining, all Democrats present in supporting the legislation. The sponsors of the 4 bills are all running in competitive races this November. Demings is challenging Marco Rubio, for example, in Florida for his seat in the upper chamber, and the other 3 are vying for re-election. So all 4 of these are good, but I can see why the progressives, the squad, want more accountability and to make sure that there's no, basically that the rotten apples of the policing aren't getting grants because, you know, they're fudging the numbers and whatnot. There needs to be more accountability. I'm all for it, but for the love of God, don't delay the vote because you won't talk behind closed doors. You want to talk out in the open so that get you on social media, you know. As much as I love AOC, for example, I think she really does want to be a star. She likes the spotlight, and I don't know if that's good for a politician. Even though I agree with her the majority of the time, every now and then I'm like, should she have said that? Is she just doing this to get likes on Instagram, or she's doing this to get retweets? You know what I'm saying? Is she that much different than in certain elements of Donald Trump and people like them that they just want the clout, they want the power, they want the attention, they want the spotlight? But my thinking has always been, if you get the spotlight and you actually do good with it, then I'm all for it. But sometimes I have to question the merits of some of their statements and some of their actions. But anyway, let's move on to the next story here. Oh shit, Pittsburgh just tied up the bitch. Was that Freiermuth that scored? Of course not. Of course not. The tight end I'm starting from Pittsburgh hasn't even touched the fucking ball, and we're almost at halftime. But anyway, let's move on to the other story here. This next story, if it doesn't fill your pants with righteous shit anger, nothing will. Republicans block bill requiring dark money groups to reveal donors. You fucking scum. Senate Republican voted Thursday to block the consideration of a bill. Not even a vote, just even a consideration that would promptly require organizations that spend money on elections to promptly disclose the identities of donors who give $10,000 or more during an election cycle. The body failed to invoke cloture on the measure. In a 49-49 vote, every Republican present voted against the measure, while every Democrat voted for it. Senators Tammy Baldwin, a Democrat, and Mike Crapo, Republican, were not present for the decision. Senate Majority Leader Chuck Schumer brought the bill to the floor to highlight the reliance of Senate Republican candidates on huge cash inflows from GOP dark money groups, such as the Senate Leadership Fund, a super PAC linked to Senate Minority Leader Mitch McConnell, according to Democratic senators familiar with Schumer's thinking. The legislation, sponsored by Sheldon Whitehouse, Democrat from Rhode Island, has been a top Democratic priority since the Supreme Court ruling in Citizens United in 2010. Jesus Christ, 12 years later, and they're still trying. I mean, come on, man. We've had a Democrat president twice in that time. You couldn't get it passed? God damn Democrats. Let me back up here. It's been the priority since 2010 that enabled corporations and other outside special interest groups to spend unlimited amounts of money on federal elections. Citizens United is one of the worst things that ever happened in this country in my lifetime, in my humble opinion. Oh, come on, intercept that pass. Fucking Cleveland. Schumer on Thursday morning said the court's decision more than a decade ago has disfigured our democracy almost beyond recognition. I don't agree with Chuck Schumer very often, but I agree with him there. The Democratic leader cast Thursday's vote as a defining issue ahead of the election, when voters are bombarded by televised political ads funded by tens of millions of dollars in anonymous donations. Republicans today must face the music. Either vote to bring transparency and fairness back to our elections, as the vast majority of Americans want, or blocked this measure and cast their lot with the forces of dark money. McConnell, a longtime opponent of campaign finance restrictions, of course he is, the goddamn fucking corrupt-ass dinosaur bitch-ass cunt, dismissed the bill as a liberal pet priority that he said would give unelected federal bureaucrats vastly more power over private citizens' First Amendment rights and political activism. So wrong, I just want to spew blood. It's ridiculous. That is an insult to, come on, get the ball! Oh, did you get it, Cleveland? All right, come on, who got the ball? Who got the ball? Is it Cleveland? Oh, he came up with his own fumble. God damn it, Pittsburgh. Okay. Yeah, calling it an insult to the First Amendment. Go fuck yourself, Mitch McConnell. I hope you and your cunt wife both get ass cancer. Mitch McConnell also slammed Democrats for bringing it to the floor instead of legislation to curb inflation or to address other economic problems. Go fuck yourself. Schumer, however, noted that McConnell has supported requiring donor disclosures in the past. Even Leader McConnell used to support disclosures. Then he did a 180-degree about-face, Schumer said, quoting McConnell's statement from 1997. Jesus, he's been around since 1997. Can't we just take him in the back and put something in the back of their head? I can't say what I really want to say. I want this podcast to stay up on YouTube, you fucking cucks. So McConnell back in 97 said that he thought disclosure was the best disinfectant. Well, that's what happens when you get power and you get millions and millions and millions of dollars from dark money. You start to agree with them. I wonder why. Republicans blocked the Disclose Act earlier this session when Democrats brought it to the floor as part of a broader election reform bill. The bill would also require groups that spend money on ads in support or opposition to judicial nominees to disclose their donors, a top priority of White House, who has spoken on the Senate floor regularly to highlight the influence of conservative group spending on the Supreme Court. Yeah, it really is vile, our Supreme Court. I have zero trust in it whatsoever at this point. White House noted in a press release issued ahead of the vote that political spending by groups that don't disclose their donors increased from $5 million in 2006 to more than $1 billion in 2020. In addition, political spending by billionaires has increased from $17 million in 2008 to over $1.2 billion in 2020. President Biden urged Congress to pass the bill earlier this week, decrying the mounting influence of dark money in politics. There's too much money that flows in the shadows to influence our elections. It's called dark money. It's hidden. Right now, advocacy groups can run ads on issues attacking or supporting a candidate right until election day without exposing who's paying for it and how they're paying for that ad. Democrats in the lead up to the vote pointed repeatedly to a $1.6 billion contribution to a political nonprofit group controlled by Leonard Leo, the co-chairman of the Conservative Federalist Society. If you want to see some eyes wide shut party, go to the Federalist Society, which is credited with helping to reshape the federal judiciary in recent years. Well, if you ever want to know why women have lost the right to basically do anything, and the Bible and guns can basically do whatever they want, thank cocksuckers like this Leonard Leo and the Federalist Society. Barry Seed, a businessman and conservative donor who made his fortune as the head of electric device manufacturing company, gave the massive donation which will fuel efforts to push courts in a conservative direction for years to come. So, if you, like me, cannot stand rich people, super PACs, dark money, on both sides, by the way, both sides take money, but at least Democrats are pushing for transparency. And say what you will about the Republicans, they do not want to expose who's giving them money. Because I'm sure a lot of people don't want to see that the KKK or white nationalists or whoever, these awful racist groups, are donating money to political people. And who do you think it is? Not Democrats, is my point there. So yes, fucking Mitch McConnell and the disgusting, corrupt, traitorous GOP strike again. But with that, we're done with the heavy news. I want to close out the news segment by talking about something a little bit more uplifting, something, dare I say, even a little comical. Governor Newsom signs human composting bill, allowing burial alternative. That's right, Gavin Newsom has made another appearance on the podcast. For a politician that I can't stand, he is getting more and more and more popular with me. I still think he's a cuck, and I would not vote for him as president unless he was the only Democratic option on the ticket. But hey, yeah, you got to give him his due when he's right. California will begin allowing an alternative burial method known as human composting in 2027 under a bill signed by Governor Gavin Newsom on Sunday. Assembly Bill 351 by Assemblymember Cristina Garcia from Bell Gardens will create a state regulatory process for natural organic reduction, a method in which human remains naturally decompose over a 30 to 45 day period after being placed in a steel vessel and buried in wood chips, alfalfa, and other biodegradable materials. Well, I don't think steel is biodegradable. The nutrient-dense soil created by the process can then be returned to families or donated to conservation land. Well, why can't you just plant a tree over it and let nature do its thing? Who the hell wants dirt carried home? Well, I guess it's up to the family, but, if one of my parents decided to go out as human compost and they say, well, Angelo, do you want the dirt that your mother and father were buried in? I'd say, fuck no, but that's just me. Supporters say it's an eco-friendly alternative to traditional end-of-life options. Cremation, for example, is an energy-intense process that produces carbon dioxide emissions, while traditional burial uses chemicals to embalm bodies and a non-biodegradable coffin to store them. California will join Washington State, woohoo, Colorado, Oregon, and Vermont in allowing human composting. Well, those 5 states tend to be the more progressive states. California, Washington, Colorado, Oregon, and Vermont. So I'm right there with you, baby. That's a great idea. With climate change and sea level rise as very real threats to our environment, this is an alternative method of final disposition that won't contribute emissions into our atmosphere, Garcia said in the statement. This new law will provide Californians 39 million residents with a meaningful funeral option that offers significant savings in carbon emissions, water and land usage over conventional burial or cremation, said Katrina Spade, chief executive of Recompose, a Seattle-based company that was the first funeral home to build a human composting facility in the country. Our end-of-life choices matter in the effort to heal this planet. A little dramatic, but she's right. The California Catholic Conference opposed the bill. Well, of course, the fucking Catholics did, saying the process reduces the human body to simply a disposable commodity. Well, that's what we are, you fucking religious zealot nut jobs. Fuck you, Catholic Church, you fucking pedos. Newsom signed the bill without comment. Well, that's probably the smartest thing he's ever done. Not talk, just do it, bitch. Human composting is slightly less expensive than a casket funeral, but at around $5 to $7 grand, it is more costly than cremation. What the fuck? $5 to $7 grand? Go fuck yourself. That is way too expensive. How much will a steel vessel cost, right? That's what they're using, right? There's no way in hell a steel vessel, wood chips, alfalfa, and other biodegradable materials amount to $5 to $7 grand. This should not cost more than a couple $100. God damn, this country's corrupt. What the fuck, man? The soil created by the human composting process could be used on private islands with permission and otherwise would be subject to the state restrictions of scattering cremated remains in the state. Yeah, I guess some people would be bothered if they find out that their house was built on cremated soil, but who gives a fuck? If the grass and the shrubs and the trees grow, who gives a fuck? This is a question of consumer choice, and Californians should have access to a death care option that is natural, carbon neutral, and a sustainable alternative to cremation or burial. Death care? How's that not a metal band? Welcome to the stage, Death Care. Rah! Earth Funeral looks forward to bringing soil transformations to California so that anyone can make this choice for themselves or to honor their loved ones. I think I missed a bit. Who the fuck is Earth Funeral? Oh, I see. Tom Harris is the guy that said Death Care. He is a co-founder of Earth Funeral, which offers the burial option. So that's cool. That's how I would like to go, if it was up to me. I think caskets are selfish. I think mausoleums are for the cuntiest cunts that ever cunted. And cremation, I was all for until I realized how much carbon dioxide it makes. So I don't want that shit, That's what I've always said. I have 2 options when it comes to death, in my opinion. What I would want is either to be cut right down the middle and my torso, arms, and face would be either cremated or kept as is and shot out into space because I want my remains to be floating in outer space. And then you can take my cock and legs and feet and whatnot and do the composting. The other option is to do the mushroom suit, which is just wrap me up in that fungal, fungi mushroom suit and bury me, and then let nature do its thing. But this other option, where you're put in a steel vessel and put in with a biodegradable nonsense and let your shit decay, but I can't get over the sticker price, $5 to $7 grand. God damn, inflation's kicking our asses. But I think that's absurd. I mean, why can't you just dump me in like a standard aluminum can? Or why does it have to be any metal like that? Why can't you put me in a biodegradable like bamboo box or some shit, or a hemp box? I mean, come on, man, steel. Well, look how long it takes nuclear waste to biodegrade. You want to put me in one of those goddamn tubes? Hell no. Put me in a fucking... Okay, I'll meet you halfway. Put me in a fungi vessel, and that way I get the way I would like to go out. I get mushrooms, and I get put into dirt, and I just get biodegradable, and I go back into the Mother Earth. That's fucking rad. You could do half my body, the other half, shoot me out into space and explode me. Fucking A, man. See, I'm more excited about my death than some elements of my life. I kid. Or do I? But with that, we are done with the news. We're going to move to close here, but I do want to talk about a couple of movies that I have had the opportunity to watch lately. I think we'll start with a good movie first. I was a little hesitant to watch the movie Where the Crawdads Sing because I read the book and I really, really, really enjoyed the novel. And in fact, I think I talked about it on the podcast. So my long-standing fans will probably remember me talking about the book a few episodes. But anyway, I was a little hesitant, like I said, to watch the movie because I don't think I'm doing a hot take here, but the mass majority of film adaptations of books usually shit the bed. They're pretty goddamn awful. Of course, there's always the outliers that people bring up. Well, what about The Godfather and Lord of the Rings and Harry Potter? Yeah. You know, a broken clock is right twice a day, fucking rim job. We get it. But Where the Crawdads Sing, I thought this is the kind of book that's going to get mutilated by a movie. And I must say, after watching the 2-hour movie, it is one of the better adaptations. Now, is it a perfect adaptation? Of course not. I would give it probably a B+ for adapting an A book. Now, you know, my main nitpick of the movie is that for a 2-hour movie, they focused on some things that I thought that they really should not have focused as much time on in the movie that took place in the book, and some things in the book that were super important either didn't get mentioned at all or were shown on screen for a couple seconds to maybe a minute or two. And they did kind of waste Garrett Dillahunt, one of my favorite character actors. And that's what I was afraid was going to happen. He was barely in the movie. His character in the book was much more important to the main character of Kaya Clark. By the way, the actress who played Kaya Clark, I have never seen Daisy Edgar Jones before. Not only is she too hot to trot, but she's a pretty goddamn good actress. David Stratham was excellent in it as her lawyer, Tom Milton. The two actors that played Tate and Chase were pretty damn good. Although the guy that played Chase, I saw him before in something. Harris Dickinson. Where did I see that bitch ass in? Let me see. Oh yeah, The Kingsman. That's right. He was decent in that. He was pretty good. He was playing the asshole, but it was a pretty damn good movie. It's probably the best film adaptation of a book that I've seen in quite some time, to put it bluntly. I recommend the movie regardless if you've read the book. If you have read the book, beware. Like I said earlier, they did speed through some things and they cut out some important things. They did not spend nearly the amount of time on Kaya's parents in the movie as I thought they did. And, if I'm being real nitpicky here, there was such an importance put on nature, the animals, the wind itself, the water, the sand, everything, that the movie tried to showcase that. They really did. However, they just didn't quite do it enough. If I was directing that movie, I would have said, okay, every scene that involves Kaya either outside or in her home. You have got to shoot something that shows nature, whether it be a sound, whether it be an animal, whether it be a bird feather, a seashell, something, because that is imperative to the fucking story. And like I said, they tried their best, but it could have been a little better. But I'm not shitting on the movie. I give probably, let's see, let me think here. On a scale of 1 to 10, I'd give it a solid 7. Not quite an 8, and definitely better than a 6. Not a 7.5. So if I had to give it decimals, I'd say maybe 7.2 out of 10. I did not expect that. I was expecting maybe a 6. So I was pleasantly surprised. So if you're a fan of whether Crawdads Sing novel, or you're just a fan of an actually deep, thought-provoking character study of a romantic drama, and do I even want to call it a romantic drama? It's definitely coming of age, and it's definitely a drama. Yeah, there is romance in there. But anyway, let me give you the synopsis. And by the way, it's also a mystery, a thriller, a murder mystery, all the cool shit. Abandoned by her family, Kaya Clark, otherwise known to the townspeople of Barkley Clove, North Carolina, as the Marsh Girl, is mysterious and wild. Where the Crawdads Sing is a coming-of-age story of a young girl raised by the marshlands of the South in the 1950s. When the town hotshot is found dead and inexplicably linked to Kaya, the Marsh Girl is the prime suspect in his murder case. And that's all I'll say about this. The tagline of the movie: secrets are buried just beneath the surface. So yeah, check out Or the Crawdads Sing for a good movie night with the missus. I think you both will like it. But moving on to the most horrific, awful, dare I say, late-term abortion of a movie I have seen in a long time. And that is the 6th Jurassic Park movie, Jurassic World Dominion. And good Christ, is it awful. And let me just get into it. I was going to take a little mental break before I got into it, but it was so fucking bad. So bad. I gave that movie a 3 out of 10, and I'm being generous. And I wanted to torture myself. So not only did I watch the entire movie, but I made sure that I watched the extended version. So it was almost 3 hours long. And let me tell you, out of a 3 hour movie, well, I think it actually was 2 hours and 40 minutes. But either way, out of that long of a movie, I maybe enjoyed 10 minutes of it, if that. I mean, everything was awful in that movie. The plot, the storyline, the characters, the dialogue, the acting. Everything was awful. Even some of the CGI was atrocious. Now, I will praise the movie for introducing a wide array of dinosaurs. And they were pretty fairly accurate, to my understanding. There was a lot of dinosaurs there with feathers. A lot of them look like present-day birds, both with fangs and teeth and shit. So of that, I applaud it. And I will say the opening 5 or 6 minutes, it was almost like a Planet Earth type deal. That was probably the best part of the movie. But then once the movie got started, I just thought, oh, this is going to be a long one. Maybe it'll get better. It did not. It got worse and worse and worse and worse. I did not know I'd be watching a borderline 3 hour movie where one of the main plot lines was prehistoric insects taking over the grain and the farmland in this country. What has happened to the Jurassic Park franchise? We're now watching a human clone worry about cloned giant insects eating up fucking farmland. I mean, what the fuck, man? So it got me thinking. If I was in charge of the Jurassic Park franchise and I had 6 movies to tell a goddamn story, what would I do? So let me back up a little bit and give you a little bit of a history lesson. The original film, Jurassic Park in 1993, is probably one of the most penultimate pinnacles of achievement of film that I have ever seen. Now, there are some movies that changed me. Jurassic Park is one, Jaws is one, E.T. is one, Lord of the Rings. I would maybe throw in Star Wars when I saw it for the first time when I was a young kid. And maybe Goodfellas, maybe Godfather, shit like that. The classics to me. But Jurassic Park has always been either number 1 or in the top 3 of the films that not only inspired me to live my life, but just impacted me in such a positive way that I think about Jurassic Park one way or the other almost every day. It influenced my life in so many ways. The characters, the dinosaurs, the movie itself, the plot, the novels, you name it. You name it. I was obsessed with dinosaurs before Jurassic Park came out, and it only gave fuel to the fire. If you talk to my mom, she would remind me that after Jurassic Park came out, and we bought it on VHS, I think later in 93 or early 94, for about 2 months straight, every Saturday, I would wake up about 7:30 in the morning. I would decorate the apartment like a movie theater. And I'm talking, I would make fake movie posters. I would make fake tickets. I would make popcorn. I would hang blankets in the hallway to make it look like, movie theater curtains. I would set up the TV and the chairs like it would be a movie theater. I would wake up my sister and my mom at some ungodly hour, and I would say, we're watching Jurassic Park. And so these poor women, my poor mom and sister, had to get woken up from sleep, make some coffee, and by 9 in the morning, we're watching Jurassic Park, where dinosaurs are ripping people up. And I did this, like I said, consecutive weekends for 2 to 3 months. And they never said no. They never said no. And so I will say, that's bad parenting. They should have gave me 1 or 2 and said, Angelo, fucking stop this. But I was spoiled. I was an only child. What are you going to do? But that's how much I loved Jurassic Park. I could watch it over and over and over and over again and enjoy it as I enjoyed it for the first time. And I still feel that way. I will still put Jurassic Park on and just marvel at the cinematic achievements that this movie did back in 93. I love the story behind the making of it. I love the book. I've read the book Jurassic Park probably a dozen times. There's nothing I do not like about the book and the movie Jurassic Park. It is one of the rare movies that I give a perfect 10 out of 10. I'm biased, I know. But that movie I hold in such high esteem that if I ever meet Steven Spielberg or any of the actors in Jurassic Park, I will probably start weeping and say, Jurassic Park changed my life. Thank you so much for giving my life meaning. And even when the much derided sequel came out, Jurassic Park: The Lost World, I enjoyed that movie. I still do. I think that movie's far better than some of the reviews and some of the critics say. Yeah, it goes off the rails, spoiler alert, but if you haven't seen Jurassic Park: The Lost World, I think it came out in 96 or 97, you have other problems to deal with in your life. But the movie did go off the rails once the T-Rex went to San Diego. But then once you know the backstory behind it and you realize what they actually were trying to do that they couldn't do because of the movie studio and for time restrictions, that's why it was kind of clusterfucky. But if they actually got to do what they wanted to do, that San Diego experiment, if you will, would have gone a lot better. So I give Jurassic Park 10 out of 10. I give Jurassic Park 2 probably an 8 out of 10, but it's probably because I'm biased. If I take my bias out, I'd still probably give it a 7.7 out of 10. But then the shit hit the fan. Jurassic Park 3, atrocious. I give it probably, to be kind, I'll probably give it a 6 out of 10. Just an awful movie. I like the idea of introducing a new baddie, the Spinosaurus, but besides that, the movie was shit. It was short. The drama behind the scenes ruined the movie. Sam Neill couldn't salvage it, reprising his role of Alan Grant. And then you got probably a couple, was it a 10-year hiatus, 10 or 12-year hiatus? Actually, let me take that look here. I have the film up on my screen here. Let's see. Jurassic Park 3 was 2001. Jurassic World was 2015. So 14 years later, you had the Jurassic World trilogy. And when Jurassic World came out, I was a little bit excited to see what they would do. And 20 minutes in, I hated that movie. But I was excited to see what they would do with it. Then Jurassic World 2, Fallen Kingdom came out, and that was so bad. I thought this is as bad as Jurassic Park 3. But when I heard that the third movie in the Jurassic World series was coming out called Dominion, and it was going to bring back all of the actors from the original and combine them with the new actors, the Chris Pratt and Bryce Dallas Howard, to make, combining the two worlds, I always said, you know what? The movie's probably going to stink, but I'm going to watch it because I've seen all these other movies. I love the world of Jurassic Park, and I owe it to myself to get a little bit of closure. And I was expecting a bad movie, people, but I was not expecting the trailer trash, just bottom of the barrel, one of the worst movies I've seen in a long time. It was so bad. It took me 4 viewing times to finish the fucking movie. It was just awful. It was just awful. Once Jurassic World Fallen Kingdom introduced cloned humans, I realized, okay, this series has jumped the shark. If you do not know how to make man playing God, man using science to play God, and cloning dinosaurs for the purposes of making money, and you can't figure out that great, amazing concept, and you ruin it by what this series did to it, then I don't know what to tell you. I don't know what to tell you. So, what would I have done? Well, long story short, because we're getting pressed for time here, and plus the second half is starting in this game, and this game is better than I thought. I thought for sure Cleveland would kick the shit out of Pittsburgh, but at halftime, Pittsburgh is up by 1 point, 14-13. It's a good thing I'm playing Cleveland's defense today. Fuck. But anyway, I would have kept Jurassic Park and Jurassic Park 2 as is. Now, for those of you that don't know, Jurassic Park 2, Ian Malcolm went back to... Wait, I should take that back. Ian Malcolm goes to Site B, where they raise the dinosaurs for the park. So that's the second movie. The third movie, Alan Grant goes to Site B to rescue a kid that went hang gliding with his stepfather and they crashed. It's really fucking stupid. But I like the idea of Alan Grant going to Site B. But that's not what I would have done for the third movie. I would have tried to get Ian Malcolm, Laura Dern, and Alan Grant. Forgive me, I forget Laura Dern's character's name off the top of my head. But I would bring back Goldblum, Neil, and Dern, put them in Site B. And if they want it to be a survival mission, that's fine. But Jurassic Park 3 was basically a rehash of Jurassic Park 2. The opening scene in Jurassic Park 2 is a little girl and her upper class, eyes wide shut family vacationing on the beach of Site B, and then she gets, not killed, but gets fucked up by some dinosaurs, okay? Third movie, a fucking asshole is paragliding with his son, and they fall into the Site B. Why they were even near it is beyond me. But I think the third movie would have been fun if the 3 original members have to go back to Site B and either exterminate the animals or go as a scientific mission to figure out what is happening to dinosaurs in the natural habitat, how are they reproducing, make it that kind of movie, and then maybe you can have a InGen or another evil company getting involved and trying to kill the dinosaurs or trying to steal something from whatever. It could have been an espionage movie is my point. It could have been a military espionage action movie would be the third one. Now, the fourth movie, I don't think we'd have to wait 14 years to make, but if we're going to do what Jurassic World did and we're going to have another reopening of the park, I don't know if that's necessary. I think the cool thing would be to do a jump, and now you have a new crop of scientists watching these dinosaurs. They're known to the world, and it's more of a entertainment project. But then if you want to have black market people coming in and trying to kidnap certain dinosaurs to sell them in the black market, that could be the movie. But you could still have people in the jungle or in the forest getting fucked up by dinosaurs as they're trying to kidnap certain ones. Not the big one, but certain ones. And then if you want to continue with dinosaurs in the real world, you could then have a little bit of what I think Fallen Kingdom was trying to do, which is showing what happens when man thinks they've corrected their mistakes in the past, but they're making new mistakes. So maybe this time around, they are trying to build a park again, but you would have a somewhat similar instances of man playing God, not understanding that they're playing with forces that they don't understand. I would make Ian Malcolm a big character in that fifth movie, saying, for the love of God, do not do a park again. And maybe Ian Malcolm is kind of the villain in that movie. Maybe he's trying to kill these dinosaurs. And then in the sixth one, you finally have the climax. The new park collapses. Basically, you have your original Jurassic World movie, but happening in the third Jurassic World movie, the sixth movie total, if that makes any sense, if I'm losing any of y'all. And that's when you have the park failing. That's when you have people stuck on there. That's when you have dinosaurs eating people again. But what I would not have done is have a brand spanking new dinosaur that's genetically modified and blah, 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 blah. You don't need to create some Godzilla-looking fucking dinosaur to make the movie interesting. Dinosaurs are interesting enough as is. There's so many real-life dinosaurs that we know existed. You don't need to create a Indominus Rex or a Dominus Raptor. And I know the latest movie, the bad dinosaur was Giganotosaurus, which was a real dinosaur, but they made it look like a fucking dragon, Godzilla, Game of Thrones hybrid-looking cunt, and that's not cool. You could have a Spinosaurus. By the way, that Spinosaurus was never in the other movie again. It was not a bad idea to have a Spinosaurus in the series. I would have brought that back. I would have had Dilophosauruses in every movie. There was different kinds of Velociraptor Deinonychus. You could have had Utah Raptor. I mean, god damn it. There's so many cool, evil, villainous-looking dinosaurs that really existed. You don't need to create fake-ass bullshit. So, yeah. You went from a movie about man playing God, trying to make a theme park out of cloned dinosaurs, to having cloned people and fucking prehistoric locusts ruining the farmland and dinosaurs running amok in secret societies in France and shit, and there's dinosaurs all over the globe. And I'm just like, what the fuck is happening? What the fuck is happening? There was a scene in this latest Jurassic Park movie. The T-Rex is loose. It's just loose. It's loose in California. And you have a helicopter with like Navy SEALs tracking it, and they lose the T-Rex. You're like, how can you lose the T-Rex? The motherfucker's like 40 feet long, 20 feet high. How can you fucking miss it? God, I mean, just the nonsense about it. And there's that giant sea monster that's like the size of 6 whales that's like taking down whaling boats and like fishing boats and shit. You telling me you can't pick that motherfucker up using sonar or radar or some shit? You can't shoot it with a fucking tracking dart? Give me a fucking break. I'm all for disbelieving facts when I'm watching a movie about cloned dinosaurs. I get that. You have to let your common sense go. But, come on. What makes a great movie great is that even when you're dealing with fantastical nonsense like dinosaurs and all that shit, if you still keep it somewhat grounded and you keep it somewhat realistic, that's when good movies become great. But anyway, I'm off my soapbox. Fuck you, Jurassic World, for ruining my childhood. Thank God I found WWF wrestling. But with that, we're done. I love y'all. Take it sleazy. Don't do anything I wouldn't do. Treat others as you want to be treated. And don't be a judgmental cunt, okay? I'm trying to go 9-0 in fantasy football, okay? I have never done that in my life. In fact, I don't think I've ever gone 6-0. So this is uncharted territory for your boy here. But peace out, everyone. Talk to you later.